1 Corinthians 12 verse 1. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, would not have you ignorant. As I said, if you change sides, it's easy to change your personality. Because you made up your mind, so, any character flaw that's holding you back, you wouldn't hesitate to revise it, such as laziness, lack of self-discipline, and so on. Just like I was, to share a lot of great information, whether it's laziness or lack of discipline, all must be changed. There are other problems, of course, including a lack of adequate reference books, without the luxury of time, so I'm going to be disciplined, try to find time to study the Bible. In response to a question from strategist Eddie, in fact, every brother and sister, every problem God has put in your life. You have to solve these problems. In facing it and finding a way out, people grow, they mature, and you can decide whether you are like a man or a god. Admittedly, being able to resemble a human being is good. If you want to be like God, you often have to be able to do what men cannot. This means that many things must be filled with faith. As recorded in Mark chapter 11, you must have the faith of God. This is a famous passage. So, what does God's faith mean? It's when you do something, not just by working hard, and know how to use a lot of supernatural resources. From Zion's past, you can witness what we do, not only as men but also as God. For example, giving sermon tapes as gifts will also use supernatural resources. 'Cause us to get 100-fold return. We add up all these resources, and believe and pray for it, it is like God. For the work of God must involve His power and resources, and God's resources, of course, include wisdom. How, then, you saw Aiden and I being anointed, have the wisdom of God. Aiden is about writing lyrics, I am about preaching. Where do these resources come from? All God's resources. Turns out, when we solve the problem, to be able to solve it humanly is already good. In the same way, it can be solved in a godlike way. In planning everything, let God's resources participate under the principle of non-requisitiveness. Once God's resources are involved, that means you're on the right track. And remember, don't ask for anything, step by step, realize that when God works with you, to the extent He desires to achieve. If you transcend, He doesn't care about you. In this way, you will act according to God's will. This is a journey to find God. When you can find God, you can teach others. This is what I mean by faith-based thinking. Related concepts, which I have shared in detail at the dinner yesterday, after finishing, it can be released publicly, not here to repeat. Faith-based thinking is undoubtedly valuable. It's a series of operations of your decision mind, conscience, and intellect. In this process, only faith can lead you, slowly progressing directly from their own character, progress to the character of God. So, in the process, God will be in your ordinary life, giving vision, direction, and mission, because your journey has begun. Every journey is carefully calculated by God. He left His country, people, and father's house as Abraham did. In case you're wondering, why was he asked to leave his country, family, and father's house? Even until the day he died, he doesn't have a place of his own yet. When he and his wife died, they could only be buried in a foreign place, in a foreign land. As the book of Hebrews says, they died without seeing the place God had promised them. Yet it was the beginning of the Abrahamic journey of faith. Imagine if he hadn't left his country, his family, his father's house, still living there, then, there is not enough character to accept this promise. He left, wandered for decades, then died. Over the decades, although we can't see the changes in his heart, but certainly, it was the first time in his life, bear the capital of this promise before God. So, for this journey, when God called him, his first standpoint was, it is definitely not allowed to do business. Can't be a leader anymore. Going to camp. From then on, his home was in the camp, in a tent, moving from place to place with all their wealth. They could never live in peace. From that moment on, at 75, he lived the rest of his life like this until his death. What do you think about when you're 75? Surely it won't be a long journey. Even on the cruise, it is only 10 or 8 days at most. But, from that day on, he never stopped, moving from place to place. Everywhere they went, they faced the plight of famine. This is how he lived the rest of his life. In the eyes of people, they may not feel any value, however, it is incredibly precious in the eyes of God. Because of this whole journey of faith, throughout his life, Abraham had no regrets. Everything he's done, he's stuck with it. Even when God asked him to sacrifice his only son, he also has no hesitation. On this journey, his standpoint changes again and again. Before he was 75, from all his inherent positions, and that was his growth in faith. 1 Corinthians 12 verse 1. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, would not have you ignorant.
每一個弟兄姊妹都有神安置你哋嘅難題，導致你哋揾出路嘅時候，要解決呢個難題。呢個過程你就可以決定似人啦定係似神。似神咧，通常就係能人所不能。所以點話你哋要有神嘅信心，就係你做嗰樣嘢嘅時候咧，唔係淨係努力喺裏邊，你直情係要懂得去利用好多超自然嘅資源。
Shaping hearts and molding minds, faith that's strong like ties that bind. Heaven's light shall guide our way every night and every day. Building up a soul so pure, faith-based thoughts we can't ignore. Heaven's gates, they open wide, with God's love right by our side. Oh.
呢個就係我所講嘅信仰思維。其實基本上係你嘅決斷心啊、你嘅良心啊、你嘅 intellect， 只有信仰先至可以導致到你由自己嘅性格慢慢去進步、進展到變成神嘅性格。神就會喺你嘅平平無奇嘅生活當中去俾方向你、俾異象你、俾使命你，因為你嗰個 journey 開始咗啦。
Heaven's mission in our hearts, lighting up the darkest path. God's own vision never fades, guiding us through life's